The midday sun fell like liquid fire on the red rocks of the Arizona desert. The heat was so intense that even the lizards sought refuge under the stones. Jim McAllister, a 35-year-old cowboy with a face weathered by the sun and hands calloused from hard work, rode his horse Thunder toward the town of Dusty Creek. He had spent 3 days searching for wild horses in the mountains and now only wanted to get home, take a bath, and sleep in a real bed. Thunder moved with a steady gait over the hot sand. Jim whistled a quiet tune as he watched the endless horizon. The desert was beautiful in its own way, golden, silent, eternal, but then he saw it. About 200 meters away, next to a giant cactus, there were figures moving. Jim squinted under his hat. They weren't animals, they were people, and they seemed to be in serious trouble. He spurred Thunder and galloped toward them, kicking up clouds of golden dust. The hot wind slapped his face. When he got close enough, his heart stopped for a second. It was an Apache woman sitting on the ground, leaning against the cactus. Around her were 5 small children. They all had cracked lips, skin red from the sun, and tired eyes. The children were identical quintuplets, no more than 5 or 6 years old. The woman looked up at Jim. In her eyes there was no fear, only deep exhaustion and a soul-crushing sadness. "Please, sir," she whispered in Spanish. "Water. My children need water." Jim jumped off Thunder before the horse had completely stopped. He ran toward them with his leather canteen. He knelt in front of the first child, a little boy with huge black eyes who looked at him with desperate hope. "Easy there, champ," Jim said. "Drink slowly, very slowly." He held the canteen to the boy's lips. The little one drank as if it were the most precious water in the world. Jim watched as his little eyes slowly lit up like stars at dusk. One by one, with infinite patience, Jim gave water to the 5 children. Each drank eagerly. Then he gave water to the woman, who drank as tears rolled down her dirty cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much, sir. My name is Asha. These are Rosa, Miguel, Elena, Carlos, and Sofia." Jim took out some dry bread and jerky from his saddlebags, broke it into pieces, and shared it among the children, who ate as if they hadn't had a bite in days. While they ate, Jim studied their faces. Were dirty, with tangled hair and torn clothes, but there was something special about them, an inner light that even the desert hadn't been able to extinguish. They shone with an incredible life force. "What are you doing out here alone?" Jim asked. "Where's your tribe?" Asha lowered her gaze. Her hands trembled. "They left us behind," she said in a broken voice. "My tribe had to migrate quickly north. Soldiers were chasing us. The road was long and dangerous. My children were very small, very slow. The chief said we were a burden, that we would put everyone in danger. They abandoned us 2 days ago with only a little water." Her voice completely cracked. "I thought we would die here. I thought I would never see my babies grow up." Jim felt rage boiling in his chest. How could they abandon a mother and 5 children in the middle of the desert? It was a death sentence, an unforgivable cruelty. But then he looked at the children again. Rosa watched him with curiosity. Miguel tried to smile, showing a missing tooth. Elena stroked Thunder's fur with admiration. Carlos and Sofia hugged each other, giving each other comfort. At that moment, something changed inside Jim McAllister, something deep that had been asleep for 23 years. Ever since his parents died when he was 12, Jim had lived completely alone. He worked on ranches, slept under the stars, had no one waiting for him at home, no one who worried about him, no one he could protect. But now, kneeling in the hot sand, looking into those 5 pairs of innocent eyes, Jim made the most important decision of his life. He took off his hat and held it against his chest. He looked at them one by one, directly in the eyes. "Listen to me carefully, little ones," he said with a firm but warm voice. "I don't know much about being a dad. Truth is, I never had a family of my own. I don't know how to braid hair or tell bedtime stories, but I do know this. No one, and listen to me well, no one in this world will ever abandon you again. You understand? You are my family now, and I am your family forever." The eyes of the 5 children opened wide. "Really?" asked Miguel with a timid voice. "Really, really," Jim replied, and he felt hot tears in his own eyes. "Before, I was just one person, a lonely cowboy with no fixed direction. But now..." He looked at Asha with a huge smile. "Now we are 6, a real family, the kind that stays together no matter what." Friends, if this story is touching your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments which country you're watching from. That makes us very happy and helps us keep bringing you incredible stories. Rosa was the first to react. She started crying with happiness and ran to Jim. She hugged him with her small but strong little arms. Then Miguel, then Elena, Carlos, and Sofia came together as they always did everything. The 5 children surrounded Jim in a giant hug, squeezing him with all their strength. Asha covered her mouth with her hands, crying with relief and infinite gratitude. "Thank you, sir," she sobbed. "Thank you for saving us. Thank you for giving us hope." "Jim, just call me Jim," he said with all the children hanging from his neck. "And don't thank me yet. We have a 3-hour ride to Dusty Creek. We need to get organized." With the efficiency of an experienced cowboy, Jim organized everything quickly. He put Rosa and Sofia on the saddle, secure. Miguel and Carlos sat in front of him, one on each leg. Elena traveled in Asha's arms, who also rode Thunder. The noble horse snorted a bit at all the weight, but he was strong and handled it without problems. As they rode toward the town with the sun setting on the horizon, Jim began to sing an old cowboy song. The children, although they didn't know the words, started humming along with him. Their little voices filled the empty desert with music and joy. The sky turned orange, pink, and purple. The desert seemed less hostile now. It looked beautiful. Asha smiled for the first time in days. The warm wind caressed their faces like a divine blessing. Jim McAllister looked around, 5 children singing, a grateful mother, his faithful horse Thunder carrying his whole new family. His heart filled with a warmth he had never felt before. For 23 years he had ridden alone on these same paths. He had slept alone under these same stars. He had eaten alone by solitary campfires, but all that was over. He was no longer a lonely man. He was the father of 5 beautiful children. He was the protector of a family. He was someone important to someone else. The town of Dusty Creek appeared on the horizon like a golden mirage. The small wooden houses glowed in the evening light. Smoke from chimneys rose into the pink sky. "Is that our new home?" asked Alina, her voice full of wonder. Jim smiled bigger than he had smiled in years. "Yes, my child, that is our home. There we will all be happy together." The children cheered with joy. Their laughter echoed in the desert like bells of hope. Thunder quickened his pace as if he too was eager to get home. And Jim McAllister, the cowboy who had left 3 days ago as a lonely man, returned as the richest man in the world. Because he had family, because he had love, because he had purpose. The adventure was just beginning. The wooden gates of Dusty Creek creaked as Jim and his new family entered the town. It was almost dinner time and the streets were full of people. Merchants were closing their shops, children played in the central square, and women walked with baskets of fresh bread. But when they saw Jim McAllister arrive on his horse with an Apache woman and 5 identical children, everyone stopped dead. Silence fell over the town like a heavy blanket. Conversations were cut short. The children stopped playing. All eyes were fixed on them. Some mouths opened in surprise, others pursed with disapproval. Jim felt the tension in the air but kept his head high. Asha looked down, uncomfortable. The 5 children clung tighter to Jim, feeling the silent rejection of strangers. "Don't pay them any mind," Jim whispered to the children. "You'll see, we're good people." He rode directly to his house at the end of Main Street. It was a simple wooden building with a large porch and a stable behind. It wasn't luxurious, but it was solid and had enough space. When they dismounted, the door of the neighboring house burst open. Mrs. Henderson, an elderly woman with a vinegar face and a sharp tongue, came out onto her porch with her arms crossed. "Jim McAllister, what in the devil have you brought to this town?" she shouted in a shrill voice. "Apache on our street." Jim turned toward her calmly but firmly. "Mrs. Henderson, I'd like you to meet my family, Asha and my 5 children, Rosa, Miguel, Elena, Carlos, and Sophia. They will be living with me from now on. Your family," the woman nearly choked on her own words, "but they're savages. You can't bring savages to a decent town." The children shrank behind Jim. Rosa began to cry silently. Miguel clenched his fists in anger. Asha placed a protective hand on Alina's shoulders. Jim felt his blood boil. He took 2 steps toward Mrs. Henderson, his eyes blazing with contained fury. "Ma'am, these people almost died in the desert. They were abandoned without water or food. They are human beings just like you and me. And now they are my family. If you have a problem with that, that's your problem, not mine." Jim's voice was so firm and powerful that Mrs. Henderson stepped back. She had never seen the quiet cowboy so angry. But before she could answer, another voice rang out in the street. "Jim, you're back." It was Dr. Garcia, a 60-year-old Hispanic man with a white mustache and kind eyes. He came walking quickly down the street with his medical bag. "Dr. Garcia," Jim said with relief, "good to see you." The doctor reached them and looked at Asha with professional concern. "This woman and these children need immediate medical attention," he said without wasting time. "They look dehydrated and exhausted. How long were you in the desert?" 2 days without enough water," Jim replied. "I found them this afternoon." "My God," Dr. Garcia knelt in front of the children with a warm smile. "Hello, little ones, I'm Dr. Garcia. Will you let me check you over? I just want to make sure you're okay." The children looked at Jim for permission. He nodded. Then Rosa, the bravest, stepped forward. "Me first," she said with a trembling but determined voice. Dr. Garcia examined each child carefully and patiently. He looked at their eyes, their skin, their hands. Then he examined Asha. "They have mild sunburns and are dehydrated, but nothing serious," he said finally. "With rest, food, and plenty of water, they'll be perfect in a few days. You're lucky you found them in time, Jim." "It wasn't luck, doctor," Jim said. "It was a miracle." At that moment, another person approached. It was Hannah Brooks, the owner of the general store. She was a robust woman of 40 with rosy cheeks and a perpetual smile. "Jim McAllister, what a surprise you've given us," she said in a cheerful voice. "Is it true these children are yours now?" Jim looked her straight in the eyes. "Yes, Hannah, they're mine. All 6 of us are a family." Hannah observed the 5 dirty, tired children. Then she looked at Asha, who kept her head bowed with silent dignity. The woman thought for a long moment. Finally, her face lit up with a huge smile. "Well then, you need new clothes," she exclaimed enthusiastically. "These poor children are in rags. Come to my store tomorrow, and I'll give you what you need. Pants, shirts, dresses, hats, everything." Jim felt his eyes fill with tears. "Hannah, I don't have much money right now." "Money?" Hannah made a gesture with her hand as if shooing a fly. "You'll pay when you can, Jim. Everyone knows you're a man of your word. Besides, these children need you now, not when you have money." The 5 children looked at Hannah with amazement. She was the first person in town, besides Jim and the doctor, to show them real kindness. "Thank you, ma'am," whispered Miguel. "You are very kind." Hannah melted at those words. She crouched in front of the children. "Call me Aunt Hannah, sweetheart, and you are welcome in my store anytime. I always have candy for good children." "Candy," the 5 children said in unison, their eyes bright. Everyone laughed, even Asha smiled a little. Dr. Garcia put a hand on Jim's shoulder. "You're doing something very good, boy. Your father would be proud of you." Jim nodded, emotional. His father had been a just man who always helped those in need. Now Jim was following in his footsteps. "Come on," Jim said to his new family. "Let's go inside. You must be exhausted." He opened the door to his house. It was simple but cozy. There was a living room with a fireplace, a small kitchen, and 2 bedrooms. It wasn't much, but it was home. The children entered cautiously, looking at everything with huge eyes. They had never been in a wooden house. In the tribe, they lived in leather tippies. "Look," shouted Carlos, running to the fireplace. "Fire inside the house, and there are chairs," exclaimed Sophia, touching the furniture with reverence. "And a huge table," added Alina, jumping with excitement. Jim smiled, seeing their joy. They were simple things he took for granted, but for these children it was a new and wonderful world. Asha walked slowly through the house, touching the walls, the curtains, the table. Silent tears rolled down her cheeks. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "I never dreamed we would live in a place like this." "It's our home now," Jim said firmly, "all of us." That night Jim heated vegetable soup on the stove. It wasn't much, but it was hot and filling. All 6 sat around the table. For the first time in his life, Jim didn't eat alone. The children ate as if they had never tasted anything so delicious. Between spoonfuls, they talked and laughed. Miguel told silly jokes that made everyone laugh. Rosa sang a song in Apache. Carlos and Sophia made funny voices. Alina just smiled happily. Asha looked at Jim with infinite gratitude in her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you for what you've done for us," she said softly. "You saved our lives. You gave us hope. You gave us a home." Jim shook his head. "No, Asha, you saved me. I lived alone, without purpose, without a reason to get up every morning. Now I have 5 reasons, 5 beautiful reasons that make every day worthwhile." The children stopped eating and looked at Jim with pure love in their eyes. "We love you, Daddy Jim," Rosa said suddenly. It was the first time anyone had called him Dad. Jim felt his heart break and rebuild at the same time. "And I love you, my children, with all my heart." After dinner, Jim organized the sleeping arrangements. The 5 children would sleep in one room on mattresses on the floor. Asha would sleep in the other room. Jim would sleep in the living room on his old sofa. He put each child to bed, tucking them in with clean blankets. He gave each a kiss on the forehead. He was awkward doing it. He had never done it before, but he did it with love. "Good night, champions," he whispered, turning off the lamp. "Tomorrow our new life together begins." "Good night, Daddy," the 5 answered in unison. Jim closed the door softly and stood in the hallway, listening to the children's quiet breathing. He smiled in the darkness. For the first time in 23 years, Jim McAllister was not alone. He had family, he had a home, he had love, and nothing and no one would ever take it away from him. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Jim's house like golden fingers of light. The 5 children woke up almost at the same time, as if they shared an internal clock. They sat up on their mattresses, looking at each other with huge smiles. "It was real," whispered Alina. "Do we really have a house now?" "It's real," shouted Miguel, jumping on his mattress. "We have Daddy Jim." The 5 jumped out of bed and ran to the kitchen, where Jim was already preparing breakfast. Well, trying to prepare it. He had never cooked for 6 people. "Good morning, champions," Jim said, flipping pancakes in a skillet. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than ever," they all said at once. Asha came into the kitchen and saw the loving chaos. Jim had flour in his hair, the pancakes were half burnt, and there were broken eggs on the floor, but he was smiling like never before. "Let me help you," Asha said with a soft smile, taking the skillet. Together they prepared a simple but delicious breakfast: pancakes with honey, scrambled eggs, and fresh milk. The children ate with voracious appetites. "Today we're going to town," Jim announced as they ate breakfast. "We need to buy new clothes for you, and I want you to meet more good people of Dusty Creek." The children got excited, but Asha frowned with concern. "Jim, yesterday I saw how they looked at us. Not everyone in town wants us here." "It doesn't matter," Jim said firmly. "We are a family, and we are not going to hide. Let them see us. Let them see that we're good people." Half an hour later, the 6 walked down Main Street of Dusty Creek. Jim walked ahead with Rosa and Miguel by the hand. Asha walked behind with Alina, Carlos, and Sophia. The town was fuller than yesterday. It was Saturday market day. There were stands selling fruits, vegetables, fabrics, and tools everywhere. People were buying, selling, and chatting animatedly. But when they saw Jim and his family, the atmosphere changed radically. Conversations stopped, smiles disappeared, merchants frowned, women pulled their children away as if the Apache children were dangerous. "Look," whispered Mrs. Peterson to her husband, "there come the savages." "What a shame for the town," murmured Mr. Thompson. "Jim should know better." Cruel comments flew like invisible arrows. The children heard them, and their happy faces slowly dimmed. Rosa held Jim's hand tighter. Miguel looked down at the ground. Jim felt rage boiling in his chest, but he breathed deeply. He had to be strong for his children. They arrived at Hannah Brooks's store. The woman was waiting for them at the door with a genuine smile. "Good morning, McAllister family," she said loudly so everyone could hear. Come in, I have everything ready for you." Inside the store, Hannah had prepared piles of clothes, denim pants, colorful shirts, simple but pretty dresses, small hats, and even leather boots. "Wow." And Carlos, touching everything with admiration. "I've never seen so many clothes together." Hannah laughed. "Try everything on. I want each of you to find something you like." The children tried on clothes with excitement. Miguel found a blue shirt that fit him perfectly. Rosa chose a yellow dress that made her shine. Elena, Carlos, and Sophia found their own treasures. Asha tried on a simple brown dress with embroidered details. She looked beautiful and dignified. "Perfect," Hannah said with approval. "Now you really look like a town family." Jim paid what he could and promised to bring the rest next week. Hannah agreed without problems. When they left the store, the children were happy with their new clothes. They walked with more confidence, with their heads higher. But the happiness didn't last long. In the central square, a group of town children were playing with a ball. When they saw the 5 siblings approach, they stopped playing. "Look," said Tommy Harrison, the richest boy in town. "It's the savage children the crazy cowboy brought." Miguel stepped forward bravely. "We are not savages. We are Jim McAllister's family, and our names are Rosa, Miguel, Elena, Carlos, and Sophia." Tommy laughed cruelly. "I don't care about your weird names. My daddy says Apache are thieves and liars. He says you shouldn't be here." The other town children nodded, repeating their parents' words. Rosa started to cry. Elena hid behind Ayasha. Carlos clenched his fists, ready to fight. But before anyone could do anything, a firm voice rang out in the square. Enough. It was the town's schoolteacher, Miss Clara Williams, a young woman of about 30 with brown hair pulled back and intelligent eyes behind her glasses. "Tommy Harrison, you should be ashamed," the teacher said sternly. "These children are new to town and deserve respect, not insults. Apologize right now." Tommy looked down, embarrassed. "I'm sorry," he murmured with some sincerity. Miss Clara approached the 5 siblings with a kind smile. "Hello, little ones, I'm Teacher Clara. Would you like to come to school on Monday? We could learn many things together." The children's eyes lit up. "School, they could go to school. Can we really?" asked Alina with hopeful voice. "Of course," the teacher replied. "All children have the right to education. I'll see you Monday at 8 a.m. Jim felt immense gratitude for this woman who showed kindness when others showed hatred. "Thank you, Miss Clara," he said with emotion in his voice. "They'll be there." But as they walked away from the square, they heard more poisonous comments. "I can't believe Clara will allow savages in the school," said an indignant mother. "My children will not sit next to Apache," declared another. "This will end badly, you'll see," prophesied an old man, shaking his head. That afternoon, when they returned home, the children were quiet and sad. The morning's excitement had completely faded. They sat on the porch of the house, looking at the ground with discouraged expressions. Jim came out and sat with them. Ash also came out, worried about her children. "I know today was hard," Jim said. "I know you heard horrible things, but I want you to know something very important." The 5 children looked up at him. "People are sometimes afraid of what they don't know," Jim continued. "They've never known a real Apache family. They've only heard stories that probably aren't true. You're going to show them who you really are." "How?" asked Rosa in a small voice. "By being yourselves," Jim replied with a smile. "By being kind, by being smart, by being brave, by working hard, by helping others. Little by little, they'll see that you're not different. You're good children with good hearts." "What if they never accept us?" asked Miguel sadly. "Then," Asha said with a firm and proud voice, "we accept each other. We know who we are, and that's what matters." Jim nodded firmly. "Exactly. We are a family, and families support each other, no matter what people say." Carlos stood up with determination in his eyes. "Then let's prove it to them. Let's be the best family in all of Dusty Creek." The other 4 children stood up too, forming a circle with Jim and Ayasha. "The best family," they all shouted together. That night, while they were eating stew that Asha had prepared with desert herbs she knew, there was a knock at the door. Jim opened it and found Dr. Garcia standing there with a basket. "Good evening, Jim. I brought some medicines and bandages. I thought you might need them with 5 active children in the house." "Doctor, that's very generous," Jim said, inviting him in. Dr. Garcia sat at the table and accepted a plate of stew. The children watched him curiously. "I heard what happened in the square today," the doctor said seriously. "I want you to know that not everyone in this town thinks that way. Some of us know that kindness has no skin color or origin." "Thank you, Doctor," Asha said with shining eyes. "It means a lot to us." Dr. Garcia smiled at the children. "After school on Monday, come to my office. I'll teach you about medicinal plants. Something tells me you have special knowledge about nature." Asha's eyes lit up. In her tribe, she was known for her skills with healing plants. "I would love to learn," said Miguel enthusiastically. "Me too," added Rosa. After the doctor left, Jim put the children to bed. This time it was easier. Already knew how to tuck them in, how to give them goodnight kisses, how to whisper words of love. "Daddy Jim," said Sophia before sleeping. "Will it always be so hard?" Jim sat on the edge of her bed and stroked her hair. "I don't know, my child, but I do know this. Together we can face anything because we are 6. We are family, and love always wins in the end." Sophia smiled and closed her eyes. Jim left the room and found Ayasha sitting by the window looking at the stars. "Are you okay?" Jim asked softly. I'm thinking, she replied. I'm thinking about how just 2 days ago we were dying in the desert, and now we have a house, food, new clothes, we have hope, all thanks to you. No, Jim said, sitting beside her. Thanks to us finding each other. I was dying too, Asha, not in the desert, but here. He touched his chest. Dying of loneliness, you brought me back to life. Asha placed her hand on Jim's. Then we saved each other. Jim nodded. That's right, we saved each other. Outside, the stars shone over Dusty Creek. There were challenges ahead. There were people who would never accept them. There were difficult days waiting, but there was also love, there was family, there was hope, and that was enough to keep going. Sunday dawned with gray clouds covering the sky. The air smelled different, heavy and charged. Jim looked out the window as he made coffee and frowned. He knew that smell. A storm was coming, a big one. The children woke up excited. It was their first full Sunday in their new home. Asha made corn tortillas for breakfast, teaching the children how to make them. Look, she said as she kneaded, you have to press like this, with love. Food made with love tastes better. Rosa tried to make her own tortilla. It came out crooked and full of holes, but she was proud. Look at mine, she shouted, showing it off like a trophy. Everyone laughed. It was a beautiful sound that filled the house with joy. After breakfast, Jim taught the children how to take care of Thunder. He showed them how to brush his coat, how to clean his hooves, how to feed him. A cowboy takes care of his horse before himself, Jim explained. Thunder is family too. Miguel fell in love with the horse immediately. Thunder seemed to feel the boy's love and let him pet him without complaint. Someday I'll have my own horse, Miguel declared with determination, and I'll name him Lightning. I'm sure you will, Jim said, ruffling his hair. But by mid-morning the wind began to blow fiercely. The gray clouds turned black as coal. Thunder rumbled in the distance like war drums. A storm is coming, Asha said, looking at the sky with concern. A very strong one, Jim nodded. He knew desert storms. They could be violent and destructive. Everyone inside, he ordered. Let's secure the windows. They had barely finished closing the shutters when the storm hit with fury. The wind howled like a wild animal. The rain fell so hard it sounded like stones hitting the roof. Lightning lit up the sky every few seconds. The children were scared. They huddled together in the living room with wide, frightened eyes. Is something bad going to happen to us? Asked Alina with a trembling voice. No, Jim said firmly, sitting with them. This house is strong. It will protect us. But then they heard something that chilled their blood, a huge creak followed by a crash that shook the ground. What was that? Shouted Carlos. Jim ran to the window and looked toward the town. His heart stopped. The old community stable where the town kept its animals during emergencies had collapsed. Horses, cows, and goats ran desperately through the streets, frightened by the thunder and confused by the rain. My God, Jim whispered, the animals are in danger. Through the window, he saw people from the town coming out of their houses, trying to catch the terrified animals, but it was chaotic. The animals ran in all directions. The rain was so heavy they could barely see. The wind pushed them. I have to help, Jim said, putting on his hat. Me too, Asha said immediately. No, Jim shook his head. It's too dangerous. But Asha looked at him with firm, determined eyes. Jim, I grew up with animals. I know how they think, how they move. I can help. I have to help. Jim knew she was right. He nodded. Okay, but the children stay here safe. No, shouted Miguel, standing up. We want to help too. We are part of this family. We are part of this town. The other 4 children stood beside him, forming a united line. Please, Daddy Jim, pleaded Rosa. Let us help. We are strong. Jim looked at them. They were so small, so fragile, but in their eyes he saw determination, courage, and love. They weren't babies, they were warriors. Okay, he said finally, but you stay together, always together, understand. Understood, the 5 shouted. They put on improvised rain gear with blankets and went out into the storm as a unit. The rain hit them mercilessly. The wind almost knocked them over, but they walked together toward the town. What they found was total chaos. Animals ran everywhere. People shouted, trying to catch them. Mrs. Henderson chased her chickens. Mr. Thompson tried to calm his cow. The blacksmith ran after his horse. Spread out, shouted Asha over the noise of the storm. Children, look for small animals. Jim and I will go for the big ones. The 5 siblings nodded and ran in different directions, though they stayed within sight of each other. Rosa saw 3 frightened chickens under a wagon. She crawled through the rain, speaking to them in a soft voice in Apache. The chickens, calmed by her tone, let themselves be caught. Rosa carried them back to Mrs. Henderson. Miguel found Dr. Garcia's dog, lost and crying, picked him up and ran back to the doctor's house, delivering him safe and sound. Alina, Carlos, and Sophia worked together to corral Mr. Wilson's goats. They skillfully guided them toward a safe shed, using sticks to direct them as they had seen shepherds do. Meanwhile, Asha worked magic with the large horses. She approached them without fear, speaking to them in a low voice, touching them with sure hands. The horses, which had been hysterical minutes before, calmed under her touch. It was as if she understood their fears, their thoughts. Jim watched in amazement as Asha guided horse after horse to safe shelters. It's incredible, murmured the blacksmith who worked beside him. I've never seen anything like it. The storm continued for 2 more hours, 2 hours of hard, dangerous, exhausting work, but no member of the McAllister family gave up. They worked nonstop, helping every person, saving every animal. Finally, when the last animal was brought to safety, the storm began to calm. the rain reduced to a soft drizzle. The clouds began to part, revealing rays of golden sun. The 6 family members gathered in the center of the square, soaked to the bone, covered in mud, exhausted but smiling. They hugged each other tightly as the entire town watched them in silence. Then something extraordinary happened. Dr. Garcia began to clap slowly at first, then louder. Hannah Brooks joined in, then Teacher Clara. One by one, the citizens of Dusty Creek began to applaud. Even Mrs. Henderson, who had been so cruel, applauded with tears in her eyes. "They saved my chickens," she said in a broken voice. "I was so horrible to them and they saved my chickens." Asha approached her and took her hand. "Everyone deserves help always." Mrs. Henderson broke down in tears and hugged Asha. Mr. Wilson, owner of the goats, approached the 5 children. "You 3, he said, pointing to Alina, Carlos, and Sophia. "You guided my goats better than I could myself. You have a natural." Tommy Harrison, the boy who had been cruel in the square, timidly approached Miguel. "I am sorry for what I said yesterday," he murmured, looking at the ground. "It was wrong. You are brave, braver than me." Miguel looked at him for a moment and then smiled, extending his hand. "Friends." Tommy took his hand and smiled too. "Friends." The blacksmith approached Jim and patted him hard on the back. "Jim McAllister, you brought special people to this town, good people, and I owe you an apology." "We all owe you an apology." Jim shook his head. "We don't need apologies, we just need to be accepted, to be treated like any other family. And so it will be," declared Dr. Garcia loudly. "This family showed today who they really are, and Dusty Creek is lucky to have them." A chorus of voices agreed. The atmosphere had changed completely. The looks of distrust had transformed into respect. The cold expressions had become warm. That night, after bathing and putting on dry clothes, the family sat around the table for dinner. They were tired but happy. "Did you see how they looked at us in the end?" said Rosa excitedly. "They were no longer afraid of us because they saw who we really are. They saw our hearts," Asha said with pride. Jim raised his glass of water. "To the McAllister family, the bravest family in Dusty Creek." Everyone raised their glasses and toasted. "To the family," they shouted in unison. Outside, the stars began to appear in the clean sky after the storm. The air smelled fresh and new, as if the world had been washed of all evil. And in the little house at the end of the street, 6 people sat together, laughing, eating, being a family. The storm had passed, and with it the rejection. Now came acceptance. Now came real life in Dusty Creek. Monday dawned bright and beautiful. The 5 children got up early, nervous and excited about their first day of school. Asha had ironed their new clothes carefully. Jim had prepared a hearty breakfast. "Remember," Jim said as the children ate, "be yourselves, be kind, ask questions, learn everything you can." "What if the other children are mean to us?" asked Alina with concern. "After yesterday," Jim replied with a smile, "I doubt anyone will be mean to you, but if they are, hold your heads high, you know who you are." At 8 o'clock sharp, Jim walked with the 5 children to the school. It was a simple wooden building painted white, with a bell on the roof and large windows. Teacher Clara waited for them at the door with a huge smile. "Good morning, McAllister family. Come in, I have special places for you." Inside, the other town children were already seated. When the 5 siblings entered, there were no jeers or cruel looks. Instead, several children smiled. Tommy Harrison even waved at them. "Children," said Teacher Clara, "let's welcome Rosa, Miguel, Alina, Carlos, and Sophia. They are new to our town, and I expect everyone to be kind to them." The town children applauded. The 5 siblings sat at their desks, surprised and happy. The school day was wonderful. Teacher Clara was patient and fun. She taught them letters, numbers, and science. The 5 siblings absorbed everything like sponges. During recess, Tommy approached Miguel. "Do you want to play baseball with us?" Miguel felt excited. He played with the other children, laughing and running. Rosa, Alina, Carlos, and Sophia played hide and seek with the girls. For the first time, they were just children, not Apache children, not strangers, just children playing. When the school day ended, Jim was waiting outside. The 5 ran toward him, all talking at once about their incredible day. "I learned to write my name," shouted Rosa. "Teacher said I'm good at math," said Miguel. "I made a new friend," exclaimed Alina. Jim listened with his heart full of joy. When they got home, they found Dr. Garcia waiting for them on the porch with a large wooden box. "Doctor," Jim said, surprised. "What brings you here?" The doctor smiled mist.